Thanks for tuning into the ReMinders podcast. This episode is a throwback to our stay in Buffalo, New York with our good friend Amanda Bridges, artist named Wolf Within. This was the morning after we all played a really beautiful, one-of-a-kind type of show at a church in Buffalo. I can't remember if this was like a weekly or monthly event, but they do a regular sound bath gathering. So we started the night with that. This was day 2 of our traveling on our mission to make it out to Maine, a good 14 hours from Cincinnati for Garden Fest, which we ended up recording an episode while we were out there at Garden Fest with our buddies Meg, Devin, and Wind. So if you missed that, that's a fun one as well. So this was after this show we played. Traveling, I was in a pretty low energy when we got there, just from being in the car all day and, whatever else. So it was really nice to start with this sound bath, just as it sounds, like a really relaxing washing of the spirit through these really pure tones of the crystal bowls. And anyway, so then Amanda played a set afterwards, which was really remarkable. We talk about it either in this episode or in the previous episode that I released from this session. So this is the first half hour. We talked for like a good 2 hours and had a cacao ceremony. Started with a cacao ceremony that Amanda led, and talked for a good bit. So I decided to cut it down to 2 parts. Actually, on that note, I'm curious if you're on YouTube right now, feel free to shoot a comment if you have an opinion on this. I've been feeling like a little apprehensive about putting out episodes that are longer than an hour or 2 hours. The average, the last few have been like an hour and a half. I'm curious if you see an episode and it's 2 hours, does that deter you from listening to it? Is that overwhelming, intimidating? I'm curious. For me personally, no. If it's a podcast that I listen to, I don't have a problem with it being long. I know I can pause it and come back. So anyway, I'm curious on some feedback for that, if you'd be willing to give some. Anyway, so this is the first half hour of our 2 hour conversation. We, again, start out with the cacao ceremony, which partly was a very meditative experience. There was minutes of silence. So I kind of skip over that in this episode, but that was, part of it was just a very mindful, shared moment. I want to give a bit of an intro. Feeling a theme of family kind of coming up in my life right now, and it's very relevant to this part of the journey. So when we left Cincinnati, day 1, the first conversation we had in the car, or one of the first conversations, the 3 of us, Amanda, Benz, Marielle, and myself, was really to set the precedent of radical honesty amongst the 3 of us. A trio, sort of triangle vibe is like an interesting one to navigate. I think after the 10 days spent with them, it felt like a very strong shape between the 3 of us. But I think that there's a tendency for this fear of third wheel mentality, that type of thing. Sometimes 2 people need to go off and have a duet, and sometimes you want to harmonize with 3 voices. And I think we found a really, really beautiful space amongst the 3 of us and a really good flow of energy. And I think that was very much in part due to Amanda from the beginning making a point to establish that as a precedent way of operating amongst the 3 of us. So that was really beautiful. So I kind of want to explore what family means, and even as it pertains to this night staying with Amanda Bridges. I immediately felt a family vibe with her. When we met at Permission to Heal, this gathering in Illinois that our buddy Evan Sturges puts on every year. I think that was the 2nd year. So hopefully we'll have a 3rd annual gathering in his I can't remember what the town is, a small town in Illinois. So this was like March, I believe, of last year, and we all drove out there, and that's where I met Wolf Within. And it was funny. I just remember the first circle we were in, of just casual. It was maybe 4 or 5 of us just talking outside. And someone remarked that the 2 of us, Amanda and I, dancing at the music, I think it might have been Evan's band, that we had a vibe of like brother sister, just like two siblings like dancing. And I thought that was really sweet and resonant. And I think both of us acknowledged that we felt that vibe during while it was happening. So it was funny that someone brought that out and remarked on that. And just the fact that she was willing to open up her home and host us for a night. I think her and Marielle know each other a bit more, but me and Amanda Benz are like, I don't want to say strangers, but just the level of trust that we have for certain people that maybe we haven't spent that much time with is really telling. And I think that is really within this family vibe. So like I said, I've been having lots of conversations with various people about what does it mean to be family? What does it mean to be community? And these are definitely discussions worth delving into and getting clear about. Because at least in the circles that I operate in, there's a lot of value put into those words, and in the sense of like virtuous, that there's a virtue in family and community. I know there's certain people that would say, oh, family, that's whatever, overhyped, blah, 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 blah. People that maybe have toxic or predominantly traumatic relationships with their physical family, their blood family. And so, yeah, I mean, let's start there. This idea of like the literal definition of family being people that we share the most DNA with, But, you zoom out a bit, take that lineage further back, and we all share a lot of DNA as humans. That's why we make a distinction as a human species, right? And then take it back even further, and I don't know the percentages here, but we share a lot of DNA with the mushroom kingdom and with even the plant kingdom and other animals. As sentient life forms, we all are in that family, right, of animated beings. So what does it really mean to share? To share what? To share DNA, to share lineage, to share what? Conversations, care. What is it? What is it that makes us family? To me, I, at this moment, would define family as people who choose to have an unconditional love and appreciation for each other. I do believe in chosen family. I think it does go beyond just blood family. But I think that those are the people that we have perhaps spent the most time with and had the most opportunities to practice unconditional love. And that's not to say that that's a default, not to go on a total ramble about this topic, but, of course there's families that have very conditional love for each other and, end up operating in very toxic and harmful and not very harmonious ways, right? So to be conscientious and conscious about that, and like, who do we feel unconditional love for? And even in the space of romance, a lot of times that can get convoluted, where we want to think that this is someone that unconditionally loves us and vice versa, but a lot of times, we do get ourselves wrapped up into these codependencies that are very conditional and expecting to get something out of a relationship, to get fixed in a certain way, to get saved in a certain way. And I think all of those are really normal, and also really sticky traps that a lot of us find ourselves dancing in and having to orient ourselves into, and hopefully in a way of dissolving those tensions and tendencies. I think it's the psychological tendency to try to reach for the external world, which is to say the people in our lives and the things in our lives, and try to get some satisfaction, fulfillment, and to get saved from ourselves in that way. And through doing that, I think we realize at some point that that's not really sustainable or the way to do that. That ultimately, like, we each have our own responsibility for saving ourselves. I'm throwing this in quotes now because I don't really love that mythology. I don't think we need to necessarily operate on a planet where we need saving. But at the current moment, there's a lot of ruts that we can get stuck in, and there's a lot of psychological and systematic structures that lead to stuckness and easily, and so there is work to be done in that way. So anyway, people hurt each other. That's kind of what egos do when they're unchecked and when they haven't, really gotten a hold of their shadow. And when we're on a level of family, that there's a coming back to forgiveness, no matter what we've done to each other, to strive for that unconditional acceptance. Not, maybe acceptance isn't the right word. It's not without boundaries. It's not without consequence. It's not without responsibility, self-responsibility and accountability for one another. But it is a tendency towards forgiveness, that when you mess up, I can forgive you, that we can move forward, and it doesn't need to be a cutting of the connection. It doesn't need to be a severance in that way. And I think that's what's true of blood family, is that there is this sense that we can't actually lose our connection. Even if two family members estrange each other, there is still that blood connection, no matter what. As my mom likes to say, that we all came from the same place and family. And I always like to challenge her and take it to the deeper level and say that we all of us came from the same place, whether in the same nuclear family or not. So yeah, I would say again that family to me is this unconditional love and unconditional appreciation, with a striving towards supporting one another, striving towards compassion for one another's situations, and when hurt happens, that we strive towards forgiveness. And then I would say even more broadly that family is the people that show up, in divine time, in the right times. Our parents show up. When we show up into this world, our parents are there. So you pop into this world and at least your mother is there, right? And our siblings, then they show up. And the family tree shows up at the hospital or at the space or whatever. And then throughout childhood, these people show up. And then our soul family, as some of us like to call it, later on in life, in adulthood and adolescence, and all these different spaces, these different people show up. And yeah, strangers show up and things like that. But, the people that you really connect with, that's an opportunity to digest and dance within these reflections that we give one another, and to grow through them and to celebrate through them, just to honor the people that show up, and that we don't always show up on time, but we do show up eventually when we're family. And ideally we show up with self-awareness and with capacity to understand and receive the reflections and the feedback that we can give one another through our conflicts and through our praise. All of these have a space. This is the understanding of the non-dual orientation that I like to talk about a lot, of non-duality and Taoism and all these things, where we zoom out all the way and we see, oh yeah, the pain had a place, the fear had a place, the trauma, all of it had a place in providing the gap which we fill with the light, and providing the experience that motivates us to strive towards more light and more growth and more love and more beauty, you know. But life isn't just about only the beauty and the love and the positivity, you know. That's not what life on earth is. We are here to digest and come to terms with all aspects of life, the life and the death and everything in between. So anyway, as you can see, I'm in a new space. We sold the house, we handed over the keys, and now that I have some space in my brain, I'm going to finally get back to finishing the latest album that I've been working on. So I'll save more words for that for the future, but yeah, included a bit of one of the tracks, Last to Awaken, in this instrumental version of it. And I'm excited to get back into that and release those expressions as well. Anyway, so let's hop in. Amanda's going to lead us through a bit of a cacao ceremony, and then we're going to say some beautiful things and sing some sweet songs. All right, love y'all.
So if we could just take the piece of cacao of your choosing that resonates, and as it dissolves on your tongue, allow everything you think you know to dissolve with it. Thank you to Marielle and the Flowers for a beautiful set last night, and for being here and asking to come out and celebrate love and life with me in Buffalo. And yeah, thank you for just being so wonderful and sharing your medicine and your wisdom. You guys are awesome.
I'm back at you.
Aho. We have to take a collective first sip. I usually add at least cayenne. I totally forgot to today. But I like to keep it bitter because I feel like the bitterness so authentically represents like the awareness that not everything about us is super sweet and gentle, and it's like just because she tastes so bitter, it doesn't mean that she is bitter. Like there's just so much love. She just has love to give. So it's like when we can realize that like, hey, life is not always sweet. Like sometimes we're bitter. Like sometimes I say things I don't want to say, or like do things I don't want to do. But like I'm still love, and we can like let go of the bitterness to like find that love again. So I think that that's just a beautiful reflection of that. So I don't like to add things to make it taste sweet.
Love that.
Yeah.
Just makes me think of last night when you're telling, was it Violet?
Yeah.
Eating the goldenrod. Like,
Yeah.
Taste of bitter means it's medicine, you know? Hopefully not also poison. I know poison tastes like eating poison ivy leaves.
Oh my gosh!
Thankfully.
That would be so
Maybe it's really sweet.
I did
Probably
hear
not.
of someone getting poison ivy by like accidentally, like it was on their hands or something, and they ate and they didn't know, and then they got poison ivy inside, and it's like, oh my gosh, you poor human.
I've
like,
heard of it like burning in a
awful.
bonfire or something, and like inhaling it.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
vicious.
Yeah.
No.
Medical assistance at that point, I'm sure.
Yeah. Ooh.
No, I love what you said though, and like, I think there is something meditative, like necessarily mindful about enduring, like tasting something better. Just there's a richness to it though. Like it's not bad, you know, it's just not sweet. And we have just such like overly saturated palates with the sweetness in our, American diets and stuff. I don't ever want to eat anything that's not
coated in sugar, you know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
So
This
there's
reminds
something
me
sweet
of
about
Or
it.
Hazelnuts.
Yeah, guilty.
Gotta love it.
This like is in line with the same conversation we've been having, like telling the truth, you know, even when it's doesn't come out nice or sweet. I've been reading this book called Hunt, Gather, Parent, and it's parenting all around the world, and I loved this idea that you can just tell a person, you know, in their example it was tell a child, like give this cup to grandma, instead of, hey sweetie, do you think could you come on over here maybe and please help, would you mind giving this cup to grandma, you know, like it's just this whole spiral of confusion. Like kids' words can be confusing, and all humans, like just words are kind of like puzzles sometimes when we start linking them up together, and so just be as direct as possible, you know, just and we rejudge it as bitterness, but really it's just humanness. It's just
I mean, it's sweet
Nature.
to be sweet, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Say more about that. What was their argument on like why were they advocating for like directness in that example? Like why not be sweet to a grandchild or whatever?
Well, specifically for young children, like they're just learning language, and so just that many words is just
Okay.
they're like
Direct.
it's like a puzzle. They're like, what have you just said to me?
Oh, the could you please and
Could you
okay,
please, hey
yeah.
sweetie, could you please?
If you're not
would
busy,
you mind?
if it wouldn't bother you too much.
Uh-huh.
That type of thing, I see.
Yeah. And so then as adults, we still talk that way. Like, would you mind opening the door for me? Like, well, what I actually just need, I actually need you to open the door.
Open the damn door.
Can you open the door? I don't know.
Get
It's,
groceries.
yeah, it's just fascinating.
I gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like creating not a new culture, but just where we can be more direct with each other and practicing direct and open communication. And it's like how bitter medicine tastes. When you first taste it, you're like, like just hearing somebody say something that, you know, is not in the most polite or like, you know, but it's getting to the truth of the matter. That's what like bitter medicine can do for you too. I keep just thinking of dandelions, like when I see people have a dandelion for the first time and some of them are like, ooh, that's not my medicine, but it's like, I do love how yesterday when Violet had some, and seeing young children like for the first time make that face, it's like, this is something like just foreign or to me, and then feeling that in your body that it's the most bitter medicine is the best medicine.
It's like pushing out toxins and whatever else. I don't know anything about science. I don't know why I pretend.
Yeah.
No, that's my intuition, is that it's like better because it's like detoxifying.
Yeah, and one of the biggest things that in herbalism that they like is like a baseline is that the bitters get your digestion moving. And so it's interesting when you're talking about like truth and like speaking that, you're also, it's like it's helping move your digestion on like a emotional sense to be able to digest more truth and realness. Yeah.
Dang, I love that.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Wow.
I will say that like for me the sweetness and tone is pretty like at least something I desire. I feel like I'm hypersensitive to like speaking tones, because it's like if you eliminate the language, eliminate our understanding of English, and you just hear like the melodies and the timbre that we're communicating, like sometimes that I think that's what we hear primally first, you know. So
Definitely
like
what
it
I
could be
hear.
like
Yeah.
you know, grab me a coffee or whatever, like it still could be like in a sort of sweet kind
Yeah.
tone.
Yeah.
Yeah, but so it's like, it's just like this, how this, like, it already is, like, it's imbued with that love, like, it's coming from a loving place, you know, like, cacao it's coming from that compassionate space, and so is the mom who wants this cup to give it to grandma and wants the child to be empowered to help the family, like, it's coming from that compassionate place, so hopefully that's just passed through right there with the bitter, you know. It's the bitter cacao, but you also feel its sweetness, and like just clear away the waste that makes for confusion, you know. Just be direct and come from a place of love. And so yeah, I like that. Just put it in your inflection.
Yeah, I was talking with Andy from Maintain Your Ground, Wake the Farm Up podcast, and in that conversation, well, we were doing a podcast. I was on his podcast, and he was just speaking about like speaking from the heart, and that felt really like a resonant reminder for me. Like, and I think if we're always speaking from the heart, then the kindness comes through. Unless we're not feeling kind to ourselves, then you know whatever. Or at least in like, especially in heady conversations, which we've been having a lot of, you know, it's like lots of ideas and lots of, what do I, and it's just like, well, if we like are operating from here and then, you know.
I have a question because I reflect on this all the time, and I love it. And I don't normally ask other people, so it's so like, how would you describe the feeling of what does it look like to you when you're coming from your heart, like when you're speaking from your heart and thinking with your heart? What does that
That's a great
look like?
thing to explore, because it was kind of through that conversation with Andy that I like first even really, I mean, of course, you probably heard it in passing, probably have, but to like, yeah, consider it. I think it started first as just an intention, like if I'm intending to be speaking truthfully from my heart. But I mean, I'm kind of new to the practice of it being an intentional thing, so I'd love to hear what you guys think about that. Yeah.
Two things come up to my mind. One is on the like truth, radical honesty subject, because that feels like a speaking of your heart, like speaking your truth no matter how it comes out is kind of one. I'll get very like sweaty and like can't speak, like have eye contact, or I don't know. There's just like almost a fear of getting it out that comes through. But then also, I thought the same thing when you asked the question. Asked that, I was like, well, how do I know if I'm speaking from my heart or not? And I don't know, but I do. One of the things that I love is when I'm speaking and we're on a roll and there's like almost like feels like we're channeling spirit and your heart is opening because of what you're speaking is exciting and joyous. And I don't know, talking about all the ideas and stuff, I'm not sure if it's like when you're getting really heady, but I love just when the conversation's hitting and you're feeling something open up in your heart. I feel like that's also but I would think that maybe just like focusing on your heart energetically in a moment and seeing what you're feeling. So yeah.
Yeah, it's like a primary like location for your consciousness. Like I feel like my location is up here a lot of times. Beep, 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 beep. But if I could be like descend into the body,
like
feel
feel your
grounded,
energy
feel connected
shift.
to that,
Yeah.
And also, like, do you ever like find yourself speaking and feel like you're hearing the words for the first time? You don't even like necessarily
Totally.
feel like you're thinking the thoughts and then expressing. I think that's kind of connected to it too.
Like you're listening, you're hearing your higher self or your like soul voice.
Channel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, sometimes when that happens, like it just feels like a little tingle, and that's when I always know, like, keep talking. Or something that I feel like some of those moments come when I'll be listening and, well, my first thought is, okay, well, if I want to know what it feels like when I'm speaking from my heart, what is it when I'm not?
Yeah.
And that's obvious. And that whole feeling of being up here feels to me like I like really want to say this thing, and it's like getting in the way of my listening, and it's like, and I feel impatient, and I feel this rush, and I feel like this like wanting to control the situation, or somebody's saying the thing wrong, and I want to say it better than them. Like I can feel that, I get there, but then when I'll like take a deep breath when I notice that. Sometimes I don't have a handle on it, but I feel this sense of patience where I like slow down, and I usually like really start to notice their face. Like I really like watching people like right here, because you get to see their eyes and their mouth, and you get to see their whole face. I love looking in the left eye, but then I go in. But sometimes I just want to witness their beauty.
Yeah.
I reel it back, just look at them, and So that kind of helps me calm down and just like really witness somebody. So when I'm listening more and witnessing, and that kind of calmness comes in, and I'll even have this like thing I want to ask them or like comment I want to make, but I'll hold it, and then they'll keep talking, and they're like several paragraphs down the page of their story, and it's still there. And that's usually when if that thought has come and sat with me, then I'm like, this is what I need to share. And then that's like a tip I actively use, and it seems to be like, it's like Spirit's little thought bubble that's hanging out. If it just like is my bunny rabbit brain, it'll be like, thought here, and then they keep talking, and I'm like, another thought, and another thought there. But if I calm and I just let the thoughts slide around and one stays, then
Dang,
I usually use it.
Yeah.
Presence.
Gotcha. Yeah. Because I feel like some people really struggle with that and will interrupt because they have a single thought. You know, I had a thought.
Yeah.
Does everyone want to hear it?
Yeah. That can also happen though too because of trauma. Like super like hyper aware people, like sometimes it's hard to like stay present, and will like
Sure.
that's like a symptom of like trauma even. Like being
Oh,
super
that's
hyper aware,
interesting.
like looking around to like at like what's going on all around when you're like listening to a conversation. It's like just like jumpy on edge, and then like interrupting like that is also like a thing.
Gotcha.
I know, like, I mean, I've experienced a lot of trauma, and that's something I really like have like worked really hard on. Like, it's still not, I'm not perfect, obviously, but like I still do it sometimes. I'll interrupt and realize like, oh my gosh, slow down. It's like my brain's moving so fast.
Sometimes it is like an excited thought that, like, you know, you're jamming. You know, that's why I like things. So we're always jamming with the universe. Conversations or music, or just, you know what I mean?
Or there's like something, it's like in music, there's like different instruments playing at the same time doing different things, and it's like a conversation, but they're still both playing, and it's like sometimes I hear something and I'm like, oh, I really like what you just said and I want to respond right now. But then it's like, wait, but you're not done. Slow down, find your feet.
It's high level skill to like be able to listen and play at the same time. You know, with conversation with language, it's really difficult. How can we both be talking and listening at the same time? You know what I mean? But, and there's little crossfades where you say your end of the sentence, my beginning of the sentence. Yeah.
Is the not? No, I can't even try.
I heard some knots.
KNOT.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm trying to untangle the knots of the mind and of, gosh, all things. Like, that's what we need. Some detangling, deconditioning.
Honesty.
Yeah, that's one of the keys for sure. Honesty, gratitude.
That's how I know
compassion.
if I'm coming from my heart. Honesty, gratitude, compassion. Yeah.
Honesty, gratitude, compassion. Way to simplify that so beautifully. I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like gratitude really is like the number one key. Like, if that's my spiritual practice, just like gratitude. That's what spirituality is.
Something
just
about
gratitude.
it. It's
I mean, if
like
you, yeah.
so good.
It's
so
it. Like,
good.
it's what we all want to be feeling, you know? Like, this is great. I'm grateful for this. I appreciate, appreciation. Like, I'm in the right place. Like, I like what's happening, you know? And I just feel like if we can, like, practice that muscle of that emotion, we're just going to magnetize more things to be grateful for into our existence, you know?
Yeah.
Just fill up the moment with things to be grateful for.
Yeah.
How do you guys,
Even the bitterness.
How do you guys practice gratitude, especially when it's hard? Any tips and practices?
I have a note in my bathroom on my mirror that says, "What do you list 3 things you're grateful for and go."
What's funny is that I've been here a couple times, and every time I'm like, I haven't done it because for some reason I was like, oh, that's a note for her to do that. And then yesterday I was like, I'm gonna do 3 things I'm grateful for. So it is a practice, and I don't feel like I've been doing it as much intentionally. I used to, one of my favorite things is to like keep a gratitude journal, and at the end of the day to just like really go in, and if you like focus on those succulent moments, and I love the idea of then being able to go back and see those like most beautiful moments, because every day there's morsels of beauty, and then it is like the energy of it. And I really did like the meditation that I led yesterday. That was a practice of me actually like feeling the gratitude, and that's where I think like it really hits, is you start thinking of things you're grateful for until the momentum rises, because it is hard when you're in a low state to like be grateful, but if you are like make it a practice in that moment.
Journaling is something like I'll do too with that, even if I'm like not starting off as that, like at the end of the day I'll just write about like what happened throughout my day, like things that really like stuck with me, or like, and like what I learned from every experience, and like the challenging ones too, and then I'll like write what I was grateful for about like the lessons that I learned. So it's like taking like the hard days and like putting it on paper and like writing it out and like getting it out, but then like writing what I'm grateful for about it so that I can learn too, and like come back to my heart about a situation and like let go of, you know, XYZ.
Yeah, that's a really fruitful practice, especially just when it's a daily habit to either write down what we're grateful for or expanding on that. It's like pre-framing the brain, like priming your consciousness. If I know I have this little homework task for myself each night or morning or whatever, I'm gonna need something to write down to be grateful for, then your brain is actually like primed to find those things throughout the day. You know, so it's a beautiful practice. I've done that. I haven't been consistent with it in a while, but I think the most simple way of going about it is, you know, Amanda, like in a moment of bitterness, or, you know, the short-sightedness of like, I don't feel like there's anything to be grateful for, you know. I call that short-sighted because like if we could zoom out and see the big picture, like there's so much to be grateful for, you know what I mean? And there's so much that we take for granted that we could tap into feeling positive about. And the most basic thing, the most primal thing is our breath, you know. Like if we can just grateful that I can breathe another breath, like, you know, that there's life in the air. There's life in the air, and I get to participate with it, you know, dance with it.
It's beautiful.
I mean,
I love that.
I guess that's like assumptive that we enjoy being alive, but I think that by enjoying the sweetness of breathing, we can.
You should put that in a song. Dance with the air.
Show that you
The
care.
air dance. Air dance. Yeah.
Should we have a musical break and make a song about gratitude?
Really?
Let's do it.
Sing on with the yick.
Yeah.
I'll yick it out.
Yeah. Maybe like just what we're grateful for? Sing on it?
Sure.
grateful to take a stand.
Sipping cacao, reminding us we know how to dance with the wind, find some care in the air, let it out.
I'm grateful for when the tears come, tears of gratitude for all of you. I'm feeling infused, just like a tea. I'm so grateful when I was sipping the cacao. I felt the ancestral gratitude of being able to sip things like you're sipping the cosmos, because everything is this beautiful energy, and the fact that we can take plants and drink them and eat them and love them, and the fact that we can set up podcast equipment and record our channeling of love, and the fact that we can sing and sing together and hear each other's perspectives and share gratitude. I'm feeling infused.
The reminders to sip because you're just so used to the hot chug.
You want to explain the hot chug?
Yeah. For the fine folks on the internet that don't understand that inside joke,
And
Wolf
for
doesn't
me,
get
I
it.
don't either, but I
Yeah.
giggled because it seemed funny.
That's just about right, you know. Get this tea in my body.
Well, I was teaching, and there was a teacher meeting, and there was a visiting teacher, and he was from Argentina, I think, and just several countries in this region of in South America, they share mate before a meeting. Like, you just come in and you all share the same drink, and so you get on this equal resonance, and you take a moment to just take a moment to be heard and to express what brought you into that moment. And so we were starting a band practice, and I just learned that. So we made tea, and the practice is you pour from the carafe, and then you pass it to you offer it to the person next to you, and you offer them this gift in this moment to be heard. And so I was like, this will be great. But the idea is, like, you sip your whole tea, like, while you talk, and then you pass, the empty cup. It would be an empty gourd. You pass the empty cup, or you fill up what is now empty because you drank it while you talked. And so try not to make the tea too hot, or you will watch all of your friends chug hot tea in small sips.
Anyway, so today was really hard, but I'm finding the gratitude. So good to be here with you guys. That's boiling still. And I gotta finish this whole thing that Marielle poured for me. No, it's hot
Marielle
chug.
pours you this big cup, and you're like.
Oh, it's soup. Can I get some crackers? My hot chug. It was never that hot, but for some reason we just got the.
It was hot enough.
The
Like,
drink- yeah, no, it
you're
was
trying
warm.
to chug it. It was warm.
It was definitely warm. So then we thought it'd be funny to have one of our side project band names be Hot Chug. Maybe our lounge metal.
Lounge metal, but we like drink tea. Just ready for it.
But if you drink enough mate, it goes from lounge to like rage metal.
Or cacao too. I mean, I feel, definitely
Dance.
feel the cacao.
Cacao metal.
Cacao. How would that go?
Like this.
And then you see Mama Cacao
Thank
like, with all
Mama
her cacao
Cacao.
pods, and she's shaking them. I got that image last time I did a cacao ceremony. It was like Mama Cacao, like the tree with her like canopy, and her canopy was wide and her body was big, and we were in a circle doing this. It was Stacy and Connor and Ethan did their cacao and kirtan, and when they called in Mama Cacao, like I just saw her coming as this tree, and you know the big pods, like they were like hanging like this, and she came in and shook them because they were like dry, and so she was dancing like, you know, shaking her pods. This like big body, round, brown, woody woman. It was so beautiful.
Super cool.
I love how you see that.
Yeah, well, again, like for me, growing up, I would have just thought that was my imagination. Like, I just made up this really cool. I love imagining Mama Cacao coming to the circle. And now, what I really believe that, like, the word imagination, I remember the day someone defined that word to me. It was my dad, and we were on the porch. And he was like, oh, your imagination is like when your mind has these pictures and and they're all made up. And I was like, I still remember that moment, because now I really believe that word imagination, we have defined it as fantasy, but actually, like, imagination is our creative power, it's our intuitive power, it's our manifestation power. Like, trust in your imagination, because that is real. Because we all understand, like, manifestation is like putting your focus on, and it goes, you know, from wave to particle, and then it's real. Like,
From non-material to material.
yes.
Yeah.
And so if that is so, then our imagination is just the creative expression of that. So use it. Like, and so theoretically, I just imagined Mama Cacao shaking her pods, but now, over time, I've just given myself that, like,
Yeah.
and so I just trust that my imagination, you know, is so, and then once you keep doing that, people respond to things that you thought you made up in your head, and then you're like, it is real.
I mean, I read somewhere that like the human eye can only see 1% of what's
Yes.
really there. So like, how much of it is like even just visualization, and how much of it is intuition, or is it all just intuition? Like,
Yes. Yeah, I suspect that, like, we have an overemphasis on reality, the real,
Yeah.
the material, you know? And it's like, to your point, like, we can only perceive 1% of what energy is here, the frequencies that are present. We have to, out of necessity, to orient ourselves into a reality, we have to collapse the infinite into a finite something that we call reality. But, like, we've been indoctrinated or educated into believing that this is like the primal truth, right? Like the fundamental truth. But we know in science class, in 5th grade science class, we know that this isn't actually solid. It just, from where we're vibing, it feels solid, we feel solid, but all of this is just empty space, like collapsing on itself in these potentialities of realms of reality, you know? So, like, imagination, you know, calling that fantasy, it's like a total, like, misapprehension of what this fantasy is. You know, this
Right.
reality is a fantasy, too, that we're just collectively dreaming up, you know, or experiencing.
Yeah.
Neville Goddard talks about how imagination is literally what people call God, you know, and that we all have access to this imagination.
well, that
And
makes sense.
yeah.
Sorry, if
Yeah.
imagination is just our creative energy, and like spirit or God or creator, it's literally the energy of creation.
Right.
is God or creator. Like it just is what it is, you know. So then, like if it lives within everything, then it really is God.
Absolutely,
right?
yeah.
It's just because
Absolutely.
God imagined
That's so
this
cool.
into being.
Yeah.
That's what exactly what I was thinking is like everything that we see was imagined at one point and created into being. And I think that humans getting to, you know, forget that and come into these bodies and just learn that from seeing everything and then being able to have that, you know, the mind, the ethereal, what we can channel through. And I think that our world needs an activation of imagination more so right now too, because it's like what we imagine can be real. And I think it will be. And the exciting thing, or it already is, and the exciting thing is that, you know, we are evolving in our consciousness to where, you know, there's so much we can do on the 3D physical level right now. But it's only up from here in my perspective to where, you know, instant manifestation and like literally anything you can imagine coming to being. I think that's just imagine like creator God consciousness. But if you think about it, like this planet is, if we all could drum up like the most beautiful, loving place that we could ever imagine, it'd be Earth. And that is like, feels so good. And the one other thing I'll say on that is like the visualization meditations. Some of my most powerful experiences have been where it's noticing the things that come into your imagination that you're like, where did that come from? Like, I've seen a unicorn, I've seen Jesus with the blue stone, and being like, why am I seeing this? But I see it recurring to where everything has meaning, and so I love that.
Or even the, what do they call it, like intrusive thoughts, you know, like the other side of that, not just like the beautiful kicks, symbolism, but like those weird thoughts too, you know, like where are those coming from and what's the symbolism of that? And that's like, I mean, that's taking the conversation into a different direction, but it just popped in.
It's okay. Sometimes they don't have to be explained. They just are.
Almost, never.
Do you want to do like a quick little meditation that I like to do? I don't know, maybe you do one similar, because it sounds like you do these kind of meditations with like, I'll like take the earth and like make it small, and like anyone listening and watching can definitely join in.
Tap in.
Well, there we have it. So I guess this was the prequel for episode 44, which starts out with Wolf leading us through this meditation. So if you missed that episode and you would like to tune in for that, you can find that on the channel. I'll put some links in the description and here at the end of the video. All right. Thank you guys for tuning in. Keep flowing.